Welcome into the Baselines of Sidelines podcast. My name is Nick. Welcome back to the show. We got a lot to get into today. I hope you guys are excited. Super Bowl just finished. Got a lot to talk about there. Olympics have started, and then probably the best news in the world. It is officially baseball season. Pitchers and catchers are reporting, and we have the rest of the players here in, I want to say, a week or two are going to be reporting down in Arizona and down in Florida here soon as well. This is it. Baseball season is here. Get hyped, baby. Get hyped, guys. Let's go. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about. Spring training roster, players to keep an eye on. Last episode, I said I was going to hit on Jerry Schimmel. I never got around to it, so I'm going to hit on him really quickly after I do the Super Bowl recap. We're going to be talking about KB and Chris Bryant. For those of you that don't know, we're going to be talking about Chris Bryant and all of those. We have a lot to get into, so let's have some fun today. All right, so starting off, the Super Bowl happened. It went about as expected. In my prediction, I said exactly what I thought. The Seahawks were gonna utterly dominate the game, and they did. Even when going into halftime, you had the Seahawks were up at that point 12-0. It felt like 30-0, honestly. Like, score-wise, the Patriots, were still in the game. But they weren't. They just were not. Hats off to Mike McDonald, the dark side defense, Sam Darnold resurrecting his career. Hats off to the Kenneth Walker and Clint Kubiak, who Clint Kubiak just, also got hired on as the Raiders head coach. Broncos fans, that's going to be it. I hate seeing a Kubiak in wearing Raiders gear, but that's all right. So you have all just hats off to the Seattle team. That's a lethal. I mean, that dark side defense is going to go down in history as probably top 5, top 3 defenses of all time. They're in the conversation of 85 Bears, 2013 Seattle Seahawks with the Legion of Boom, 2015 Denver Broncos with the no-fly zone. I mean, the 2000 Ravens, you got some just, they're up there with all of those teams. Drake May never looked comfortable. He was never able to get comfortable. Now, part of that, I blame that on Josh McDaniels and that scheme. They did not totally play to. They did not cater to help Drake May. They just didn't. I felt like they should have run the ball more. You had Stevenson, who could absolutely carve up a defense if he wants to. I feel like they gave up on the run game too early. Coming out of the second half, that Patriots team, I know a lot of the national headlines right now are calling them frauds. I know I'm not quite there yet, as much as growing up as a Broncos fan, I'll admit I despised the Patriots. I absolutely despised the Patriots. So I'm not going to outright sit here and say, the Patriots got what they deserve or that they're frauds. I'm not going to say that, but I definitely will say that the better team, the more complete team, the absolute rightful winner was Seattle. Seattle from top to bottom, you just was outright lethal, outright. They had the setup they wanted. They had those corners, the safeties, they had depth everywhere. That defensive line, 3, 4 guys deep. Even on the offensive side, special teams side, you had Torrey Horton, CSU alum, out there on kick return, really lethal kick return, punt returner. You had, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I apologize. The number 1 receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. You had him, Njigba, Jackson, or Smith and Jigba. You have him. You have their tight end. You have Kenneth Walker, who he really stepped it up when Zach Charbonnet went down. And when they get Zach Charbonnet healthy again, I mean, that's a 1-2 punch. That's a punch that is equivalent to the Sonic and Knuckles duo of Jahmyr Gibbs and, forgive me, again, I'm more of a baseball guy, the second running back on the Detroit Lions. I mean, that's 2 utterly lethal running backs, and the Seattle Seahawks have that the same thing. The fact that they were able to continue on when they lost Kenneth Walker is just awesome. That is a truly potent team. They're going to be right back in it. Honestly, that team is so structured well. Mike McDonald has absolutely set it up perfectly. Going to the Patriots side real quick. Hats off to Mike Vrabel and making a really good defense. I think also, sorry, I'm thinking of somebody else. I'm thinking of Mike McDonald. Really quickly, Mike McDonald was I could be wrong on this, was the first coach in NFL history to be a head coach and call plays on the defensive side of the ball and win a Super Bowl. I believe, if I read that stat correctly, he is the first head coach in NFL history. That is huge. Then but Mike Vrabel, I think he really has a well-built team. They have a lot of questions on the offensive line. I know they have 2 rookies. Campbell looked like he was on roller skates. There were times where that Seattle offensive or defensive line was shoving Campbell into Drake May. Like, I think there was one play where the edge came around, damn near picked up Campbell and plopped him in Drake May's lap. That's not a recipe for success. Success, I apologize. That is not a recipe for success. That is a recipe for disaster. And it absolutely was for the Patriots. I know I have a couple of Patriots friends out there, fans out there, who they're hurting after this. That was a brutal Super Bowl to watch. It was entertaining for me just because I'm a defensive guy and I knew this was going to be a smash mouth game. And both teams had their fair share of cracks, but ultimately Seattle was just too powerful. Seattle was absolutely way too powerful. But yeah, I think that's as much as I'm going to go over on the Super Bowl. It was really good. Really good performance by Seattle. Really good play. And the Patriots have a lot of questions. A lot of questions. They need weapons. And they need to talk about that offensive line. Whether you continue with those rookies or whatever, the Patriots need answers on that offensive side of the ball. So we'll see if the Patriots can turn that around. Seattle, I have no worry about. I know there's Kenneth Walker, who was the Super Bowl MVP. He's going to be a free agent. And I know a lot of people are talking about him possibly being looked at by the Broncos. I don't know. I will have to dig deeper into Sean Payton's history as far as signing running backs, because I know with a lot of the big name wide receivers that have come out there, Sean Payton has never been one to pay wide receivers a lot of money. He's never been. He's always been draft, develop, and then maybe pick up a wide receiver too for like a third round pick and a ham sandwich, or a fourth round pick and a ham sandwich. And when I say ham sandwich, I'm talking like a seventh round pick. That's kind of what I mean by that. So there's not going to be much for Broncos fans. Don't expect a big wide receiver. Running back, I'm not sure if he would be willing to do that, because yes, George Payton is the general manager, but really how Sean Payton's running things, I would more say George Payton is like a glorified head of scouting, and for the listeners, because people on YouTube can see this, I'm air quoting this, the Sean Payton is like more of the air quotes general manager. He's going to be the more making the says on what can and on what players he wants and doesn't want. Yeah, George Payton has the general manager title, but I would say that's more Sean Payton. But so I'll have to do more digging on that. I doubt the Bronco. I would be a little surprised if even Seattle lets him go. If they can pay him, I think Seattle will. But I would be a little surprised just even if the Broncos sniff at him. I don't see him being as one the Broncos are targeting. If they do target him, great, but I don't see it. It just, the running back needs to be answered, absolutely. I just don't know if they're going to shell the money for Kenneth Walker. That doesn't seem like a Sean Payton MO, in my opinion. But, all right. Quickly, we got the Olympics happening right now. I know I've been paying a lot of attention to it. You know, I've been enjoying bobsled, luge, skeleton. I love a lot of those sledding events. Snowboarding. People who know me personally, I'm a snowboarder. I usually go once or twice a year. I'll actually be going in March snowboarding. So I always watch the snowboarding events. I love those. I love watching hockey. U.S. women's hockey team. Hillary Knight. All those. Harvey. I apologize. I'm going to butcher her name. Schlettner, I want to say. Just the U.S. women's hockey team. They look unreal, absolutely unreal. I know they faced Canada in the prelims not too long, or in the seeding games for their final game of seeding. Don't tell me the outcome if this comes out before I've finished it. I haven't recorded and so don't tell me the outcome. But I've been loving the Olympics. There's a lot to like about the Olympics. And yeah, so I hope y'all are enjoying the Olympics. I'm having a great time. I love the Winter Olympics way more than the Summer Olympics. Nothing against the summer ones. I thoroughly enjoy those. But when it comes to the Summer Olympics, I'm probably watching 3 or 4 events, maybe, give or take. When it comes to the Winter Olympics, I'm watching, outside of 2 events, I'm watching every single event, every single one of them. I love them all. My wife loves figure skating, so we watch figure skating. You name it, I watch it. I was watching curling when US was going up against Switzerland for to move on to the gold medal round. You would have thought I was watching a championship football game. Like there were points where I was like, come on, let's go. So I'm loving the Olympics right now. I have my USA baseball hat on, partly because the World Baseball Classic is also right around the corner. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's a lot to get excited about. Rockies fans, Ezequiel Tovar is on Team Venezuela. So that is awesome. We have a couple of other Rockies on. I know we have there's a couple of Rockies on Team Israel, and I know there's like 3 or 4 other players that are on other teams, so there'll be players to watch as far as Rockies go. I'm going to be rooting for Team USA, obviously. Born and raised USA, so I'll be rooting for them. But yeah, so Olympics, World Baseball Classic, let's go. Let's have some fun. But let's get into the meat. Now let's transition. Let's get into the meat and the bones of the episode, which is spring training. This is this is the best time of year. Outside of October baseball, playoff baseball, this spring training. Sorry, I realized I probably made the mic freak out. I was hitting my desk. I I I gotta stop that. I apologize. The but spring training, everybody is even. It's 0-0. The games don't matter. Games are going to be happening in 9 days. Like we're in single digits, and then there's going to be baseball again. There's going to be baseball again. Pitchers and catchers have already reported. Players are about to be reporting here in a handful of days. I want to say in about a week, maybe less, a little less than a week. I realize I said earlier about a week to 2 weeks. I'm wrong on that. It was a week. It's about a week. They report. So that's going to be awesome. I'm actually looking at my show notes. So for people watching on YouTube, if you see me glancing, I have notes over here on the screen that I'm looking at. I just realized I did not bring up the Jerry Schimmel thing. So, longtime Rockies fans know that Jerry Schimmel was the second commentator on the Rockies broadcast on KOA, and he unfortunately was laid off by, I know, iHeartRadio, which KOA is under. They were doing a huge sweeping amount of layoffs, unfortunately, and it's really, really sucky. Jerry Schimmel got laid off. So as far as I know, it's just Jack Corrigan going to be on the call, which don't get me wrong, Jack Corrigan is a legendary voice when it comes to baseball radio broadcasts. Absolutely legendary. I listen to him anytime there's a Rockies game on and I'm driving. I have that on, and I love hearing Jack Corrigan, his insight to baseball. He was the one, him and Jerry Schimmel are honestly my role models as far as talking cadence, and which I need to get better at, I realize, and just their knowledge of baseball and how they describe it. Like when you listen to Jack Corrigan and even Jerry Schimmel's phenomenal at it, but Jack Corrigan was just legendary. Is legendary. When you listened to them, they were just able to paint a picture that it felt like you were right there. You were in the batter's box. You could feel the moment. And it just, ah. But yeah, Jerry Schimmel, it sucks. I never got to meet him personally. I know he's moved on. He's working with a special needs group with a church, and he's doing great work. I read an article that Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post did on him. I'm really happy for him. It's gonna suck not hearing his voice during Rockies games. But yeah, so as a Rockies fans, I know that is an absolute bummer for people who have listened for a long time. I mean, I can think of countless calls. I know there was a game against, I want to say it was the Diamondbacks. The Rockies were down by one in the bottom of the ninth. Jerry Schimmel was on the call doing the play because for people who have never listened to the Rockies radio broadcast, Jerry Schimmel and Jack Corrigan would switch off who was doing play-by-play each inning. The other one would do color commentary. And this day, Jerry Schimmel had the ninth, and I don't remember the player, unfortunately, off the top of my head, but when that player crushed the home run, he was like, he had this signature, "It's gone! Ball game!" And you felt the energy. So it's a bummer to hear that Rockies fans were just not going to be able to hear that call anymore. We're not going to be able to hear Jerry Schimmel's voice. I wanted to put my 2 cents out there. I know he was laid off probably a month and a half ago at this point, maybe even a little longer. But as a person who's trying to get into media, trying to get into this world, I wanted to talk about somebody who has had a meaningful impact on my life and the reason why I'm wanting to get into this realm, into this world. So that's my 2 cents. But back to spring training, back to the hype, the excitement. You have baseball back. The best time of year. You have spring training. You could just thinking of it going back to high school when it was workout time right before the season starts. You could smell the dew on the grass. I only played high school ball. That was the highest level I played. So I never played in college or I don't think even the minor leagues would have even taken a sniff at me, which completely understandable. But I I could hearing the bats clanking in the dugout, hearing it brings back just this time of year. I start to think about baseball season. I start to think about being in the dugout, the camaraderie, hearing the bucket of sunflower seeds being placed on the dugout bench or being passed around. There's just, so many memories, so much to talk about. But yeah, this is the best time of year. I know probably the biggest topic of conversation was going to be the pitchers. The Rockies have been busy this offseason when it comes to pitchers, which I know Paul DePodesta has talked about. He mentioned it in a couple of interviews. I know he mentioned it with I know Walker Monfort mentioned it in an interview with DNVR that Paul DePodesta was going to be prioritizing pitchers. Paul DePodesta even talked about bringing in a lot of starting pitching depth, and they just keep adding to it. They keep adding to the bullpen. It's just absolutely exciting to see. Honestly, quite frankly, that the Rockies are making moves, to be honest, but it's really cool to see. One thing I'm fascinated about is their approach to specifically starting pitching and just pitchers in general, but mainly starting pitching, is they're bringing in players who are 7, 8 pitch arsenal pitchers. you're not seeing 4, 5, 6 pitch, or you're not seeing like that 4 to 5 Arsenal range. Josh Burns and Paul DePodesta are looking for guys that have big arsenals. And Paul DePodesta, well, specifically Josh Burns, as actually mentioned, has talked about this on a couple of articles and a couple of other interviews. He has touched on wanting to take a different approach, which is going to be not leaning on the sinkers and sliders and leaning way too heavily on the fastballs. Sorry, Chase Dollander. I really hope Chase can get things turned around. I'm a huge, huge Chase Dollander guy. I was a huge fan of him when they drafted him 2 years ago. So I'm really excited for him, but he needs to change his arsenal if this is how this regime is going to handle things. But yeah, they're wanting to try to stabilize that rotation and try to stabilize that depth. And even Paul DePodesta has said, we are trying to raise our floor. He said it in a press conference, or not a press conference. He did a little talk at a baseball meeting in Colorado. I apologize, I forget the meeting off what that meeting was at the off the top of my head, but he talked about raising the floor and raising where they want to be. Now, is it over and all above what they were? I wouldn't say it's massive, no. And you can't expect massive. You can't expect that overnight. It's just not going to happen. Not with, after coming off a 119 loss season, and not with dealing with altitude. Pitchers don't want to come here. Pitchers do not want to come here. So you're not going to get the Justin Verlanders. You're not going to get a lot of those number one, really high ace pitchers. You're just not going to get that. But you can still get quality pitching, and I think the Rockies really have done that. They have brought in a lot. They've brought in some interesting pieces. I've talked about Michael Lorenzen, and with his pitching depth, they actually just brought in they brought in another pitcher very recently within the past three days. They brought in Tomoyuki. I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. I apologize. Tomoyuki Sugano. Sugano. A Japanese player who was with the Baltimore Orioles, which I'm over the moon. The fact that they, even if it wasn't straight out of the MPO league out in Japan, the fact that they signed a Japanese player, something I've been begging for 3 years at least. One of my favorite players of all time, Kazmatsui. And just all of the great players that come out of Japan. And the Rockies just were not capitalizing on them, have not capitalized on them for years. And one of the things that Paul DePodesta, Walker Monfort, Josh Burns, they have all talked about, mainly Paul DePodesta, I will give him more credit, is going into those Asian, market is not the term I want to use, but I can't think of the other term. But go into that region, the Asian region, specifically Japan, and get good players, get those good quality players that a lot of other teams are going after, and the Rockies just weren't. So, yes, he came from the Baltimore Orioles organization, but he still came out of the NPO league. He still is one of those players that you look at from when he played in Japan and you go, damn. You just say, damn. I mean, in 2025, he had a 133 walks per inning pitched. I mean, he only gave up his walk percentage is 5.3. Oh my God, 5.3? That's insane. That's good. You have, and his slider, his curveball, his fastball, I mean, they all have really good movement to them. The MLB, so I'm looking on Baseball Savant right now. I'm actually looking at his profile right now. He has a lot of great movement with his sweeper to his glove side, which, for those of you that don't know, he's a right-handed thrower. So his glove side would be is basically the movement angles towards first base, essentially. His sweeper is right there within the MLB average, maybe curves a little more to the right than others, but I mean, his fastball velocity is pretty average. He does need to work on his strikeout percentage, but otherwise he has some really good stuff to him. He has some meat and bones that I think can be really enticing and they got him on a relatively cheap deal. Let me find out exactly his deal that they just did. But I'm really, really excited about what the Rockies have done. And then, or NPB, not NPO. Sorry for the Japanese league. But the fact that the Rockies have brought in a Japanese player and have brought in a player that you can get excited about, it's just awesome. It's just absolutely awesome. And here we go. So it's a $5.1 million deal with one addition. Hold on, sorry. Contract readings are weird for me. I'm still learning them. But it basically signed for a single 5.3 year deal, $5.3 million deal for 1 year. And for 2026, relatively cheap deal. He also gets an interpreter and a physical trainer for a total compensation of $175,000 plus 6-round trip business or first class airline tickets between Japan and the US, not exceeding $12,000. I mean, by all means, easy. Then I know it's not my money I'm spending. I completely and utterly realize that. But it's still just, if you have followed the Rockies even for 5 years, you know they don't go after those Japanese players. So it's really, really freaking exciting to see them do that. And I'm just over the moon excited. And then and then they also signed from the Mets Um, Jose Quintana from the Mets, he's a left-handed pitcher. Let me pull up his stats real quick. I mean, his breaking run value is a 6, so that is an 82%, which for people that don't know, the how this is graded is how his breaking balls and his off-speed pitches and his fastball pitches, how their movement is. It's an 82%. A lot of his other stuff is average to low, but again, Colorado Rockies, you're not going to be signing aces. Looking into 2025, I mean, 3.96 ERA with a 9% walk ratio, 16% K ratio. That's honestly, I can't hate that. There's some work that needs to be done. His the barrel percentage, which basically making contact, 9.7, which is kind of on the upper end of what he has done throughout his career. And yeah, otherwise everything else is not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. I think the Rockies, I don't know much about him. I've been mostly focusing on Tomoyuki, but I would definitely say that Jose is a pretty just below average pitcher based off of what I'm looking at. His average over 14 seasons is a 3.76. He has 113 wins to 110 losses. I don't put too much stock into wins and losses at this point. I think that's kind of a pretty close to dead stat, in my opinion. I know they have talked about for, I want to say 3 years now, possibly just getting rid of that stat entirely. I don't know why they haven't, but because the way they manage pitchers now, the way they adjust rotations, I mean, sometimes even even players will do what's called an opener, where the pitcher will uh, a pitcher will play for the first either inning or batter, and then he is out, and then they bring in the actual air quotes starting pitcher who will go 5 innings or 5, 6 innings. So that's why I say wins are kind of a dead stat in my opinion. But this is it's one of those that I'm looking at this. I'm looking at Jose, and I think it could be interesting. It could be one of those that I think he has some decent bullpen depth. Because I think, yeah, he's a bullpen pitcher, it looks like. I think it could be really good for the Rockies, but we'll have to see. I know one thing, because I bring it up apparently almost every episode, so I apologize if you're sick of hearing this. I know the Rockies or the MLB in general, is going to be starting talks with the Players Association on the 2027 Collective Bargaining Agreement, CBA. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I really don't expect talks to go far. this is going to be very preliminary stuff. So that's all that really is. Could it get heated? Based off of everything I've seen, I would not be surprised. But that's kind of where we're going, and um kind of tie all of the pitcher stuff real quick. Josh Burns has talked about wanting to have those pitchers with a bigger arsenal. So Tomoyuki, you know, Tomoyuki, Lorenzen, a couple of the other players they have signed, even expanding current players that they already had on the roster, such as Kyle Freeland, wanting to expand their arsenals because they feel like it is much harder to game plan against when you have a bigger arsenal. So the Rockies are trying to go with that approach instead of the kill you with the fastball approach. So it's going to be one to keep an eye on. I think Lorenzen, just with all of the veteran experience and the little bit higher floor, in my opinion, than what I've seen from some of the other signings that they have done. I think Lorenzen is going to be the one to watch. I know he's going to be the one for me to watch on during spring training. So I like that a lot. And I'm really curious to see how these pitchers bounce back after, you know, at Coors Field, there's going to be a day where you give up 1 or 2 home runs in an inning. How do you bounce back after being punched in the mouth? And that's what I'm also curious about as far as this new pitching regime, the new pitching coach regime, is how do they handle those players in that after that has happened. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens there. I'm very intrigued to see how this goes. And yeah, it's going to be a lot to talk about come spring training. And then 2 key points I want to hit on real quick before we end this show. German Marquez has not been picked up yet by any team. And that is honestly surprising for me. I know a couple of other bigger named reporters out there, such as Patrick Saunders, Troy Rennick, and I think even Thomas Harding has mentioned not even a minor league contract has been offered to German Marquez. Talking 4 years ago, German Marquez might as well have been an ace for the Colorado Rockies. Now they DFA'd, or he became a free agent. They were not going to re-sign him. That was little to no surprise that they were not going to re-sign him after the couple of really struggling years. I'm just really surprised that, yes, he is slightly on the older side, but nobody has picked up German Marquez. It's kind of unfortunate. I feel for him. I definitely try to side with the players a little bit more than I do the owners. Now, come this CBA, I'll probably be on the owner side a little bit more, but I digress on that one. I'm very intrigued, and I hope German Marquez finds a landing spot. He has been a pitcher that I've been a huge fan of, but yeah, I hope he finds his landing spot. I hope he really becomes I really hope he has a bounce back to his career. That's going to be what I'm looking for. And then kind of also talking about towards the end of careers, Rockies just recently put Chris Bryant onto the 60-day IL injured reserve or injured list. Who's surprised? Literally nobody. I don't even think Chris Bryant is surprised. I know Troy Rennick has gotten. I know Troy Rennick has talked on the whole Chris Bryant thing, and he part of it is talking about how Chris Bryant, he has a. I'm trying to look up. I apologize. Chris Bryant has a degenerative back disease that his back just won't allow him. He can't, it flares up when he runs. So there was talk about putting him from time to time in the outfield. That was laughably not going to happen. And he really can't swing his bat. It's kind of the end of Chris Bryant, honestly. It's the end of his career. Basically, I have sympathy for him as a person and as a player. I mean, you think back to when he was with the Cubs, 2015, 2016, 2017, even 2018. Phenomenal player. Really, he had the 1 year where he was league MVP. I want to say that was 2017. It was 2016 or 2017. So I feel for him as a person, as a player. Really fantastic guy, but he was one of those that when the Rockies signed him, it was more of a PR move than it was a player move. It had almost nothing to do with baseball. It was, hey, this guy has a big name because he did good back when he was with the Cubs. He didn't do anything good with the Giants. He was already on the decline when he was with the Giants. But the Rockies, with Dick Monfort and Bill Schmidt, signed Chris Bryant to that massive deal that the Rockies are still paying for and are still going to pay for the next 3 seasons, about $81 million. Chris Bryant was just a PR move to say, hey, we screwed up with the Nolan Arenado deal. We realize that. So here is signing Chris Bryant. We have this big name player. We're turning a page. Yeah, that has to be one of the most abject disasters. Quite frankly, it's honestly worse than the Russell Wilson deal. Because here's the thing. The Broncos were able to bounce back from the Russell Wilson deal in 2 seasons. And they were still paying that giant dead cap. The Rockies? What bounce back did they had? None. They've had a steeper decline than what they've had. And also what have they done? There has been nothing. At least Russell Wilson played and attempted to play. Chris Bryant has only played 170 games since being a Rocky. I think actually less than that. 100. I think it's like 100 and it's low. It is very low. I know that. So it's an absolute bummer to see. And I really hope that the Rockies can just put this in the rearview mirror. I know one thing that they have to go through is restructure that contract with either scheduling payments, they also have a buyout option, and I want to say they can also do a workman's comp claim and just put that in the rearview mirror. That is what they have to do. Take a page out of the Russell Wilson contract book that the Broncos did. Eat that money and just move the hell on. Unfortunate, KB never worked out, but it's move on time. Pack up your stuff, KB. Get out of here. He's just not ready. His back is responding poorly, and yeah, it's over for KB. Colorado just needs the Rockies just need to put that in the past. That is the biggest thing. He is not going to play a lick of baseball ever again. Whoever thinks he will is just in denial. He physically cannot. He absolutely physically cannot. So it's a bummer. I feel for the guy. I really, really, really do. I do not feel for his lack of production. I do not feel for the absolute abject disaster that he has been for the Colorado Rockies, which has made the Colorado Rockies an even bigger laughingstock on top of already what they are, which is even more insane. So it's, again, I feel for Chris Bryant, I do, but move on, Rockies, move on. But all right, I think this was a much longer episode than I was anticipating. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I know I had a lot of fun with this episode, and we covered a lot of topics, but I think I think that's just where we're at, is just a lot to talk about, but it was fun. I'm a pitching nerd, so it was fun talking about the pitchers. It was fun talking about the most recent signings. Baseball season is here. Baseball season is here. Let's get excited. Ah, I'm excited for that. Ah, best time of year. Absolute best time of year. Out of all of it. Best time of year. So I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. This was the Baselines to Sidelines podcast. Nick out.